You're listening to the Level Flight Podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network.
Welcome back, everybody, to the 24th episode of the Level Flight Podcast. My name is Elliot, and I'm joined, as always, by Brian and Connor. It's the playoff preview, boys.
It's the playoffs. It's the playoffs. We got a special background.
This has to be the coolest logo that I've ever
seen. Yeah.
So we're going to get into it today, talking about Jets Vegas starting on Tuesday. What would that be? The 19th of April, I believe.
18th.
Or 18th of April?
18th, yeah.
18th. Sorry, yes, because tomorrow's the 16th. That would be correct. So on the 18th of April, on Tuesday at a late time of 8:30, actually not as late as I thought the games were going to be, the Jets will be in...
That's my bedtime. Come on.
It is.
Exactly. The Jets will be in Vegas, Sin City, to play the Golden Knights. And yeah, today we're just going to talk about two teams, how they stack up, a couple different guys to look out for on either team. I think just first, we're just probably going to talk about what we think of, well, I may want to touch on the last game of the season, just quite briefly going into the playoffs. But other than that, it'll just be Jets Vegas today.
Yeah, that was the game where everyone rested. The depth guys, gave it their all, showed some heart. But
honestly, kind of impressed with the effort with some of them. Like that was really, there was some fight in those guys. So
Colorado was chasing a division title, and they stuck with them. So that was good. But here we are. I have a few younger siblings, and if they think they're sleeping at all this week, they've got another thing coming because these games are late. Yeah, and if the Jets are tied in the third period and it's 11:30 at night, I don't care. It's the playoffs, so you can sleep when you're dead. That's my take. But this series is filled with storylines. Like just Western Conference Final rematch. Jets fans remember that one quite well. Marc-Andre Fleury goalied them. The Jets, won all the underlying numbers, but goaltending was the difference in the series, much like it could be in this one, right? Laurent Brossoit, former Winnipeg Jet, is projected to be the starter. So I guess we could start there with the goaltending battle. Just like Brossoit's like on fire, and he's playing really well lately. And I'm pretty sure it was the NHL's second star of the week or something.
He single-handedly won that game for them against Seattle. Like that was unreal. Like I was writing something as I was watching it, and it felt like the entire time that I had it on in the background, it was just someone screaming about how Brossoit made a save. And good ones too. Like it wasn't just like he was, making these super easy ones, but Seattle was, at that point, they were still unsure of what was going to happen seeding wise because LA was playing at the same time, and that's who they needed to help them move up into a division spot, which in hindsight for them, I would feel more comfortable playing Colorado than Edmonton, but but they didn't know that yet. So they were playing incredibly hard trying to move up in the standings there, and absolutely brick walled by Brossoit.
Which is interesting because he had hip surgery earlier in the year. And if my memory serves me correctly, he did like a rehab stint in the AHL and was not good. He was like struggling big time in the AHL. And then they called him up because they've had a million injuries. And here he is. He hasn't lost a game in regulation. He's like 7-0-3 or something ridiculous. And he's the NHL second star of the week last week. And he looks great. And usually hip surgeries mean like game over for goalies. Like you need your hips to play goalie. You're going up and down. You're going side to side. You need your hips, right? But he's been great. The Jets, they obviously have the advantage in net in this series with Connor Hellebuyck and the way he's playing lately. Yeah, it's not close. But then again, if Laurent Brossoit keeps playing the way he's playing, that the biggest advantage that the Jets have going into the series can be shortened up pretty quickly.
The thing too, like goalies are voodoo in the first place.
Exactly.
So there's no properly predicting, but it's also, this is unlike, regular season matchups where you can catch someone in one-off game. You're at the very least playing 4 straight against the same team. So there's also the ability to adapt either from the goalie standpoint or the shooter standpoint. So by, game 3 or 4, uh, especially for the Jets case, if you figured something out on Brossoit, suddenly that the series looks probably drastically different. Um, but once again, it's impossible to know what the goaltending situation will look like at the end of game 4.
Yeah.
Um, because let's be real, Brossoit's played no playoff games, and their backup conveniently has 2 cups. And
Conveniently.
we all know how much in organizations how much the whole Stanley Cup pedigree is valued. How quickly do you think they turn to Quick if Brossoit looks like he's overmatched?
Yeah. I think pretty quickly.
Yeah,
Like if the Jets come out game 1.
pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. No pun intended. I honestly think if the Jets come out and put up 6 goals in game 1 on like 18 shots or something ridiculous,
Yeah.
they go to Quick game 2. Like I think the Stanley Cups and the experience that comes with that will make them not hesitant at all to just put all of Brossoit's regular season work behind and
Yeah.
say this is a new season, this is the playoffs, and Jonathan Quick's the better guy for us moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's something the Jets need to do is they need to win a game on the road. Game 1 or 2, they need to win one of those games. They can't, as great as the whiteout is and as much as an advantage as that is, when the team has goaltending that's this spotty, you need to win a game on the road. Especially when you're the 8 seed, right? You
Yeah.
need an advantage somewhere in the series. You can't start down 2-0.
Yeah.
So figuring out Brossoit or Quick in one of these first 2 games is crucial to winning the series. So that's probably the biggest thing to watch for going into game 1 is the goaltending battle, because obviously the Jets have Connor Hellebuyck, top 5 goalie in the league, as close to a sure thing as you could get in net. And then on the opposite side, Vegas has the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And the way the series ended in 2018 with Marc-Andre Fleury goalieing the Jets, this is a chance for the hockey gods to make things right and have Connor Hellebuyck steal a series.
I have such terrible memories of thinking how many goals they could have had in 2018, especially Scheifele, who honestly, there was that one game in Vegas where he had like 3 or 4 that were sure goals in any other situation, but somehow Fleury was there.
Somehow, some way.
And then the thing that bothers me too is the fact that he came out and then he looked below average in the series against Washington for the Cup.
Yeah.
And it's very much a what could have been moment, and this is by no means the same team for either team. But it's hard not to think about it as a fan, like what could have been in playing Vegas and wondering what could be if you come in as the underdog and surprise some people.
Yeah. And again, if the Jets win this series, Vegas fans will be thinking what could have been with their number 1 seeded Pacific Division team, right? Best team in the West. What could have been if Mark Stone and Logan Thompson were healthy, right? Mark Stone, we don't know. He might play.
Yeah.
Hasn't he been skating these last couple weeks?
Yep.
So there's the goaltending advantage, but the Jets also need to be healthy, right? Nikolai Ehlers we don't know. We don't know if he's going to be ready for game 1. The Jets said he passed concussion protocol, so it's not that, but they're still reevaluating him. They're still taking a look. Maybe it's something else, upper body, but they need to be healthy, because if the Jets are going into the series without Ehlers and Vegas gets Stone back at any point in the series, there goes your goaltending advantage. And if Vegas is healthy, that's why they're the 1 seed. They're a really good team. And if they're healthy, they're even better than what their record says, because they haven't been healthy all year. Mark Stone hasn't played in 2023. Like, he's just been hurt. So that's another big thing, is the health of Ehlers and Stone. Because if the Jets can't go in with any disadvantages as the 8 seed, right? You got to be perfect. So that's another thing to watch for game 1. But this actually isn't the worst matchup for the Winnipeg Jets.
It's not great, but it's not. It could have been much worse.
It could have been. We can move on to we want to do a little players to watch thing. We'll start with Vegas just because we're previewing the series. People likely know more about the Jets at this point. So we'll start with Vegas. Brian, we can start with you just because there are so many players. They have such good depth. The goaltending is a big thing. Their blue line is great. But if you had to pick out one player to kind of keep an eye on that storyline, who would you pick?
Well, I mentioned him earlier in a similar thread, but I think Jonathan Quick is uh, the X factor of sort of their questions they have. I don't think he is anywhere near where he used to be. He started off really strong there and then sunk back to, below league average where he was all season in LA. But I think though that it's something to watch because I have no idea how much Vegas values his pedigree. For years he was up there with among the best goalies. He has won 2 cups. And is despite that being so many years ago, teams still look at that and go, he's got the experience. So as we mentioned, like if Bressois fumbles at all, do we see Quick and they run with Quick, even if there's some questions about his performance? Like I think that personally, I think that having Jonathan Quick in net is an advantage for the Jets. Especially for a team because the Jets have finally started shooting again.
Yeah.
Quick is the it's funny. I've had this conversation with a lot of people. The only reason you see Jonathan Quick on those like greatest saves list is because he overcommits to shots and gets super out of position and has to send himself flying across the crease. So if the Jets just shoot low and get rebounds, chances are they're going to have a pretty good shot at burying something. Bressois is just a little bit more of a wild card because we've never seen him under this sort of pressure.
Yeah. That's a pretty bold pick because Quick might not even play a game in the series.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I picked him though, because there's the uncertainty there. But if he
Right.
does get in, then
That's a good call.
suddenly the series could change in a different direction.
And if he gets in, it likely means the Jets are doing something right?
Yeah.
Because if Bressois is playing well, the Jets aren't winning. They're just going to roll with Bressois. If Quick plays a game, that means the Jets got to Bressois, they won a game on the road, or they lit him up for 7 goals in a game, whatever. And I think it's possible, given how the Jets have scored lately. Remember, they scored 21 goals on that 5-game homestand. Their offense is clicking. It's the new lines. It's Scheifele to the wing. It's Ehlers, Nemestikov, Wheeler, second line. Nino on the third line. That third line's playing great. We'll touch more on that later when we get to the Jets players to watch. But Elliot, I want to hear your Vegas player to watch.
So I'm gonna go with Jonathan Marchessault. Was just looking on Money Puck. I know numbers don't mean everything. I don't have his exact numbers. For the last this season he has 28 goals, 29 assists. Last 10 games he's got 7 points. Last 5 games, 2 goals and an assist. But while looking at his expected goals this year, totaling the entire season, he has an expected goals of 15.29. So that's about 4 off of Kyle Connor. And he only has Kyle Connor has a 30 goal year at this point. Let me
finish with 34, mid 30s. I think.
Let me fact check the 31. So
31,
3 goals off. So theoretically, if you think about it, Kyle Connor's probably creating more chances. But his expected goals per 60 is 0.86 and 0.2 per game. So when you look at there's a table on Money Puck that goes through, you can sort it by expected goals versus goals. He is considered to be probably middle of the road. Funny enough, it would be really funny if he came back in the series. William Carrier, according to Money Puck, would be considered a sniper. But Marchessault is considered to be one of their better scorers on the team. So I just think that he, next to Jack Eichel on that first line, will probably create enough or at least a decent amount of offense for them. I think him and Eichel seem to work pretty well. So his expected goals on that table is 0.9, and that's per 60. And then his XG, I believe, his XG his goals per 60 is 0.9. Sorry, and his XG per 60 minutes is 0.86. So he's scoring about as much as he's creating, I would say. So it's not like he's overperforming or he's underperforming. So he should be somebody to watch just because he will probably provide most of the offense next to Eichel. I look up and down the lines, and I, other than like William Karlsson, maybe Phil Kessel, who is one of my favorite. He's one of my favorite Leafs of all time. So I'm always going to root for Phil to score. But you look at this lineup, and without someone like Mark Stone, who also creates offense for them, I know he's more of a defensive winger, but he does create offense for a team like Vegas. I think Marchessault will probably be next to Eichel, as long as and Connor will probably get into it about Eichel, a little bit of a spoiler. Those two line mates, I think, are going to create most of the offense for the Golden Knights.
Yeah, you guys saved me their top line center. This is a layup. I'm gonna take Jack Eichel. His first time ever playing in the playoffs, which is, well, I guess it's believable when you take into account that he played for the Sabres for like 5 years.
Yeah.
But that storyline is something to watch because we haven't seen a motivated playoff Jack Eichel before. He's a point per game player. He's got 66 points in 67 games, 27 goals, 40 assists. He's a playmaker. He signed a big contract. He's got that $10.5 million contract. And he's the key to all of it, especially if they don't have Mark Stone. They need people to create offense. He's their guy. He's been in and out of the lineup down the stretch. I don't know if that's resting or if he's actually dealing with something. But that's such a huge component to what Vegas does, is their depth down the middle. And it all starts with the top line center, right? They've got Eichel, they've got Karlsson and Stevenson, all centers down the middle. The Jets match up well with Dubois if they put Scheifele back at center, Lowry. But with Scheifele on the wing, I would argue that Vegas has an advantage down the middle. Because Chandler Stevenson, again, I'll kind of cheat here and go with a second player. He's their second leading scorer. He's got 65 points in 81 games, and 49 of those are assists. So he's a big-time playmaker as well. But no, I'll stick with Jack Eichel for now. He's a two-way player. He's their best player. And if they're going to fill the net and overcome their goaltending issues, he's going to be at the center of it all. Their power play runs through him. It's an easy pick to watch, and it'll be easy to watch him because he'll have the puck on his stick the most if you're watching Vegas. We can move on to the Jets now, though.
It's NBA playoffs time. That means big hoops action with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Get in on the excitement of every game with the touch of a button. New customers can make a $5 pregame moneyline bet and score $150 in bonus bets if their team wins. Plus, everyone can score a no-sweat same-game parlay every day during the NBA playoffs. Open the DraftKings Sportsbook app, opt in, and place a same-game parlay on any NBA game. If it doesn't hit, you'll get a bonus bet back up to $10. Download the app now and sign up with code THPN. New customers can make a $5 pregame moneyline bet and score $150 in bonus bets if their team wins. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050 or visit gamblinghelplinema.org. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY, which is 467-369. In Kansas, call 1-800-522-4700 on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources.
I'll start for this one. We'll go in reverse order. We'll go me, Elliot, Brian.
Snake draft.
Yeah, exactly. I want the first pick in this one. No, but Brian actually wrote a great article for the Hockey Writers, outlining some players to watch, and I'm gonna steal his idea. Connor Hellebuyck. I talked about the goaltending advantage earlier, and my whole point for this is the goaltending advantage has to actually be an advantage. If Connor Hellebuyck comes out and isn't at his Vezina level and isn't at the level he's been playing the last 2 weeks, the Jets have no chance in this series. If goaltending is even, the Jets will not win this series. So Connor Hellebuyck has the chance to steal 2 or 3 games, and then if the offense can steal another one, if the power play can steal another one, that's how the Jets are going to win this series. Is on the back of Connor Hellebuyck. Again, I'm choosing Jack Eichel and Connor Hellebuyck. Like, obviously, you're going to watch these players, but the reasoning behind Hellebuyck is they have such a large advantage in net that if they don't take advantage of it, this series is over before it even starts. So Connor Hellebuyck has to be great. I'm stating the obvious, but this advantage has to be the biggest advantage for the Jets. So we'll see how it plays out. He almost stole that game in Vegas earlier in the year. The one that went to OT that saw Jack Eichel score the OT winner. But he has the chance to steal games like that, make 40 saves, make 50 saves, and the Jets squeak out a 2-1 win on the road. And in the playoffs, it doesn't matter if you win in regulation, in OT. You just got to win, baby. Just win, baby. So, yeah, we'll move on to you, Elliot, but I'm stating the obvious and going Connor Hellebuyck.
I'm going to go with the trade deadline acquisition, Nino Niederreiter. Another shout out to Brian. He in his article,
It's
he
still
did talk
Brian's
about
content day.
Yeah, it is
Still Brian's content.
Well, you released it before the episode, so
True.
I'm using it as a reference.
Blaming
point.
me?
No, I'm giving you credit that you're on the ball. That's what it is.
He's gonna see a massive bump in views Monday morning. Monday morning when this comes
Monday
out.
morning when we post this. Anyway, Nino has played 82 games in the playoffs. He's played on those Minnesota teams. He's played with the Predators. I don't actually know. Sorry, yes, the Canes as well. I was going to talk about numbers again, like I did with Marcia. So I don't even think I need to. I don't even think I need to bring up the XG numbers. I think it's just pretty obvious when you watch him play that he has given life to a third line that, I'm sorry, at times looked dead. Mm-hmm. That line, unless it was on the penalty kill with a couple of those guys, it looked like a dead line to me anyway. I will throw out there that his XG per 60 is 0.93 and his goals per 60 is 1.11. Money Puck does have him considered to be one of the top quote unquote snipers on the Jets, next to Mark Scheifele. His numbers actually
puck so much. That's the thing. Yeah.
He Money Puck would actually say that he is probably a better. The stats say that he's a better shooter than Kyle Connor, but obviously we know that's not true.
It's also they profile differently as shooters. Like Nino makes his camp in front of the goal,
in front of the net.
And
he's like one of my favorite examples to use. He's like a Brendan Gallagher. When Brendan Gallagher had that 30 goal year, that was he was one of my favorite players to watch. Anyway, that's besides the point. When we talk about Nino, his ability to play on both ends of the ice and just kind of give energy to a line, no matter where he is in the lineup, I think is just super valuable for a team. And I know we talked about it at length, but adding depth at the deadline, I know it wasn't the depth we were looking for, but at least adding Nino seems to have at least given the Jets a little bit of extra energy to kind of keep going here. Obviously, when we talked about the trade deadline, we wanted Nino and we just got Nino and Vladdy's been very good as well. But if we could have added those two plus a big name, I think the Jets would also be in a better position than they would be right now. But still, just having those two, and especially Nino, especially the last couple of games, has been really good. Last 5 games, I was just going to see, he's got 3 assists in his last 5. In his last 10, he's got 6 points. So he's been all over everywhere. You can point to a bunch of different situations where he's had his handprints all over the game. And so if he can continue that in the series, I think that is huge for Vegas, who I think is a good team, but they have a lot of guys in their bottom 6 that are kind of like the Jets, where they only really play defense. I think with Barron showing up a little bit more offensively, he was another name I was going to throw out there. But if you add Barron and you add Nino, who's now in the bottom 6, that gives the bottom 6 a little bit more offense, I think, than, Vegas is throwing out Phil Kessel in the bottom 6, and that's really all your offense that you're going to get from that bottom 6, I would think. But the Vegas is built a little bit differently. Well, I guess they're kind of built the same if you really think about it. Vegas is trying to build a more defensive bottom 6, and the Jets have more defensive bottom six. But if you really think about it, Nino could be a very important X factor. I can see him scoring 1 or 2, or at least having a hand in an important goal the Jets score in any one of these 4 games. So,
Well, you mentioned the third line, and I'm staying on the third line here, and I'm gonna talk about Adam Lowry, who, since I attribute this largely to Nino, the line of Niederreiter, Lowry, and Appleton, since they were put together, has been the best line on the team in terms of what they've been generating. Which normally when you see a line centered by Adam Lowry isn't the case, because usually for him, defense and penalty killing, that's more of what you expect and what he profiles as. But I think we saw the reaction from the team after his little, his fight there with Ryan Reeves. I truly think that he asserted himself sort of as like the heartbeat of the group. I think him being that sort of emotional leader of the team while also being able to center a very productive line that is hot going into the playoffs is absolutely massive for the Jets to generate outside of that top 6. I was going to talk about Scheifele because there's a lot of talk about, what he's had some turbulence this year. There's been a lot of quiet, stretches, a lot of disappointing stretches. And it's easy to talk about that and how it'd be nice to have, 2017-18 playoff Scheifele show up. And if he does, great. But if you get any sort of, shut down nature of the, any of the top 6, like you're looking at, dead offense. But if you have 3 lines that are actually able to generate, that's immediately becomes harder for the other team to match up against. So
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's I like seeing, though, Lowry being able to actually, use his game and work with guys like Nino, where you don't need the finesse necessarily with Nino. He just knows where he needs to be. And you don't get finesse with Appleton and Lowry, but that's fine. They're just doing what they can, and it's working.
Yeah, and you guys brought up two players from that line. Just to kind of further that, it would not shock me in the slightest. I'm probably it's probably a guarantee that when the Jets are at home, they're gonna match up the Lowry line with the Eichel line. So that just furthers your guys' point on how crucial these players are, because not only do they need to chip in offensively and stay hot, but they need to shut down Vegas's best player, right? I can't see the Jets putting the Dubois line on the Eichel line, maybe the Nemesikov line, but I think it's very likely that they match up Lowry and Eichel. It'll be interesting to see how Vegas attacks that.
Yeah.
I think they'll use high leverage situations like offensive zone faceoffs and stuff to use Eichel against Scheifele, Dubois, Connor, just because that line isn't as strong in their own end as the Lowry line. But yeah, keep an eye on the matchups too. Obviously, matchups are a huge thing in the playoffs. But you guys highlighted it great there with the third line, because that line will be huge when the Jets are at home.
Yeah.
I just want to I saw this on Twitter not too long ago, actually. And I want to bring this up. So you guys were talking about Money Puck. They have series odds.
Mm-hmm.
The Winnipeg Jets and Vegas Golden Knights series, they give Vegas a 51.1% chance to win. That is the closest series by 8%. The next closest is Boston, is Dallas at 55%. So it's 5% difference. I didn't see Dallas there. But they have, this series is apparently, according to Money Puck, the closest call out of any series of the first round.
Well,
so I don't know.
I was gonna make mention. So I was again looking at, on funny enough, Money Puck. I was looking at the expected goals differential for the entire season for both Vegas and for the Jets. So just looking at trends, Vegas obviously has been in the positive this entire season. They've had their ups and downs, but you look at where they are currently to end the season, their expected goal differential for their last game on the 11th, or excuse me, on the 13th was 0.19. Now, the Jets have been in a different place. Funny enough, early in the season when they were winning, they were actually in the negative. They were actually losing the expected goals battle every single game. But then you look at their recent form and you look at their game on the 13th, or even the game, I guess you could say against the Wild is 1.15, and they've been trending up. In games that they've been winning early on in the year, they were losing the XG battle. And in games during their 2-month skid, they were actually winning the XG battle over most teams. And now recently when they've been winning the XG battle. So I would say right now, if you think about trends, which lots of people like to talk about trends in coming into the playoffs, theoretically the Jets are on a more positive trend than Vegas. Vegas has been trailing off, especially since the beginning of March. If you're just looking at expected goals, which I know obviously isn't the only stat you can look at, but if you're just looking at shot and chance generation, which a lot of people like to do, Vegas is currently dipping. The Jets have kind of been up and down, but currently on the up.
No, I totally agree with that. Even during their skid, the Jets had games, or like the majority of their games were just, we talked about it, they're getting goalied. They can't finish their chances. There were games where they looked lifeless. They got dominated. I'm not discrediting that. They went on a 2-month skid. Like, it happened. But if you want to drink the Winnipeg Jets Kool-Aid and think that they're going to come out and win this series, there is a very solid argument that they've been playing well for a month and a half. They just weren't finishing their chances, and now they're getting hot at the right time. Hellebuck has a .930 save percentage and a .177 goals against average. Scott Billick tweeted that out the other day in his last 13 games, right? If this team can finish their chances and Hellebuck can play like that, go ahead and drink the Winnipeg Jets Kool-Aid, because they're going to win this series if they play like that.
Well,
they're going to win this series.
I think that there's also an argument to be made that the special teams battle favors the Jets.
Yeah.
As bad as their power play has been, Vegas's penalty kill isn't very good, and Vegas's power play isn't very good. Both of which are, I believe I think their power play is ranked 18th in the league, hovering right around that 20% mark. I think the Jets are just below that at 19. So that's something. The difference is the Jets have they have a top 10 penalty kill. Vegas has the 19th best.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a team that has holes, and despite having, for the back half of the season especially, a horrific power play, the Jets have a chance if they figure something out, which they started to at the end of the season there. Suddenly it becomes a little bit clearer for them to actually, swing the series in their favor. It's definitely possible. At 5-on-5, I think they profile fairly equally. But special teams are key. If the Jets find any success on the power play, I think they've got a clear-cut chance at winning this.
The thing is, that's a great point that you bring up, because the Jets power play was lifeless. Like, if you want to talk about something about the Jets season that just looked absolutely lifeless at times, it was the power play. And over the homestand, the game against the Wild, Nikolai Ehlers, who we've been banging the drum for him to be on power play 1, they put him back on power play 1, and the power play looks miles better than it did at those points in the year, right? So even with that 3-month-long hiatus or vacation from the power play, they're still only a percentage lower than Vegas. I'm sure Vegas at some point in the year had their own massive slide because they have enough talent to make the power plays even. But if you're right, if the Jets can figure this out, and I have more faith in the Jets penalty kill than I do Vegas's, right? Like you said, Jets have a top 10 kill. They've had it all year.
Their best penalty killer is Hellebuck. So
yes, exactly.
I prefer
goaltending
that in the goaltending battle as well, in the penalty killing. It profiles way better for the Jets. It's just I have a hard time sort of predicting things. As I said earlier, let's say first 2 games Jets come out, even if they split, right? They come out, but they have a great power play, great penalty kill. Then you've got, for Vegas though, you've got 2 games now that you can adapt. It's not like you're playing them, once, then you see them in a couple of months, and it's like both teams are different. You're seeing them 4 games in a row. So it's I think what's key for the Jets too is to not go insane with the changes if something's not working.
Yeah.
because the worst possible thing they can do is over adjust.
Do we think they need to stick with the lines that's been working?
I think so.
Don't
Like
change the lines. The last time we changed the lines, we went on a 2-month skid. That was around the time that we went on the 2-month skid was when the lines were working. We lost a game and Bonus threw everything out the window and went, all right, we're going from scratch. Like, what? Why? No, if we keep the lines the way they were before this last game, if you look at the game against the Wild, nothing should change. Everything should stay the same. The greatest saying of all time, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. There's no reason to make changes.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think they definitely need to stick with those lines for the first 2 games. But then when you come back home, the matchups are so different. We'll see if they do decide to change, and if they're down 2-0, I wouldn't mind seeing a change. Like, I don't know, maybe,
of course.
maybe
I'm not against change. I'm just saying, like, right now, don't do anything.
Game 1 and 2, they have to stay the same. I agree. Like, there's no reason to change them going into game 1 and 2. I don't care if Scheifele wants to play center. He's playing the wing. It's working. Like, keep it.
Well, he plays center like he's a winger anyways, so let's.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hey, am I wrong?
I'm not gonna say you're wrong.
I don't want to be. I know I'm quote unquote an armchair GM, but my philosophy has always been the team, even when I've played sports. So if I'm Bonus and I hear anything out of Scheifele's mouth about I want to go back to center, I just look at him and go, no, you're doing this for the team. And if you want to play and you want to get ice time, you're playing the wing because it's working. Don't even come and talk to me about, unless it has to do with, hey, I think if we do this, this, and this, or I want to change this strategy with our line. Like, I would honestly, if I were Bonus, just look at him and go, no, you're not doing anything. You are playing right wing, and that's the end of that conversation.
And the reason I bring that up is not because I know Mark Scheifele personally, and I know he wants to go back to center. Whenever he moved to wing, everyone was saying, "Oh, we know this is a temporary change. Scheifele's going to go back to center. It's just a wrinkle, whatever." But then it worked for 2 weeks, right? No one was expecting that. No one was expecting the Jets to go on a roll to end the year and for this move to be at the center of it all, right? So again, I'm not putting words in Scheifele's mouth that he wants to go back to center. I'm basically saying that everyone who was saying this was a temporary change, I'm saying it shouldn't be.
It may be permanent now.
It may be permanent now. Maybe he's a winger for the rest of the season, and maybe they try him again at center to start next year if he's here. But if this has to stay for these next 2 games. But
I've got some Kool-Aid fuel here.
Oh yeah, Kool-Aid fuel. Let's do it.
Dom Luszczyszyn from The Athletic has a playoff model that he runs every year. His model favors the Jets.
Oh man,
51-49.
Don't get my hopes.
That's once again though very reminiscent though. It's just gonna be close. That's the thing. Anyone who says this series is going to be over 4 or 5 games, unless something insane happens, I can't see that happening.
This isn't
get ready for
Canadian
some intense games. No, yeah, get ready for some intense Game 6, Game 7 moments because this series is going the distance.
And these 2 teams don't like each other. There are still players from both teams that were in that original series. So, and that series got chippy towards the end. So you can't expect this to be over in 4 or 5. But another thing I did want to make mention, and I mentioned it last week on the podcast, and I thought about making him the X factor because theoretically to me, he's like a random trade acquisition or trade deadline acquisition after the playoffs. Cole Perfetti.
Yes. Good call.
So my thought process is I would assume that he's been skating. He's now in the red non-contact, which normally means that the guys are getting closer. You can quote me if you want. My thought is that I don't think he plays. I think he travels for games 1 and 2. I'm assuming he is back for game 3.
I still think that's early.
Yeah.
I think, game 1 and 2, no, because he's still in the non-contact jersey. I agree there. I think like game 3 or 4 he'll start like skating regularly, and maybe game like 5 or 6.
You also have
I
to
just
remember it's the
everything I've heard
playoffs.
has been bad. I know, but Perfetti's. I'm assuming it's his shoulder. I'm just
Yeah.
assuming.
Yeah.
Like it looked like his shoulder when he went off the ice. He's
Yeah.
already now had 2 major shoulder injuries at the pro level.
And he's 20, 21 years old. Yeah.
So I like, as much as I'd like to see them rush him back. Well, no, like obviously if he's not healthy, don't
Well, yeah,
rush him back. Like,
I'm just saying.
yeah.
From what I'm seeing, it seems like he's on a good path. That's all I'm trying to say. I would assume that he will be back in this series. Before it was sounded like second round, I would assume that he will be back at some point in some capacity in this series, as long as like we're assuming it will go the distance.
I think it'll be late. Yeah. I think it'll be more like game 6, game 5, game 6.
Nevertheless,
if in the first round at all.
Yeah.
I think it is the first round, but nevertheless, whenever you throw him in, it's like making a trade. He hasn't played in a good chunk, like probably a month and a half, 2 months, something like that, or a certain amount of games, whatever. Just throwing a number out there. But the point being is that he hasn't played, and what he does for the Jets in just creating offense with his passing will be an asset to this team. Because I would assume he won't come back into the top 6. My assumption is he will drop to the bottom 6, which just adds more offense. And like we talked quickly about last week, Saku comes out, Appleton to the 4th, Cole Perfetti to the 3rd.
Do you not worry, though, a little bit that, 1, it might adjust some form of chemistry, and 2, bringing a guy in who hasn't played in game action that's the thing. If he comes back in the first round, like we're saying, in the heat of a possible elimination, does that not concern you a little that it might be a bit much for someone who the extent of his playoff experience in the pros has been a series? Wasn't it a series loss with the Moose?
Yeah.
But
no, he didn't.
Sorry, continue, Brian.
He was hurt.
What were you gonna say?
Yeah, so he's no pro playoff action.
No.
There's a chance that the Jets could be up against elimination or trying to eliminate the Knights. I would be slightly concerned about him getting immediately up to speed into game action. He hasn't played in several months, and as much as I love Perfetti, I would be concerned that he could look a little bit off. And like any player, if you miss months and come back into a super intense game, you might not look like yourself.
Oh, of course. And the same conversation I would even say goes for Mark Stone. I know Mark Stone has playoff experience, but he hasn't played, like Connor said, in 2023.
Yes, but I have more faith, though, in him coming back and being an impact guy, because he's done it quite a few times. Like he's
sure.
I watched him come, like in Ottawa. He missed a bunch of time with injury, came back, and honestly, he looked better than what he did before. I just don't know if Perfetti. I mean, obviously, we won't know until it happens, but I want Perfetti back in the lineup as much as the next person. I'm just concerned that when he does come back, something's going to look a bit off for a bit, and I don't know if timing wise, if that benefits him as a player.
Oh, no, for sure. And not that doesn't cross my mind. Obviously, that comes with any player. You can talk any sport, any player on any team coming back from action after not playing for a while. You need to take a game or take 2 periods or a quarter or whatever the heck it may be to get acclimatized. But I think it's not like he's like my difference is someone like Mark Stone, yes, like you've said, has come back, but he would automatically probably be in the top 6 or on the top line or whatever. And so he's going to be playing lots of minutes right away. The benefit of Perfetti coming back with these lines and the way that this chemistry obviously has run, and it seems like it's not like you're bringing back a bad apple. Like we talked about Mark Scheifele being a bad apple, and he was the other week praising Cole Perfetti about being like a source of light and happiness in the locker room.
Let me be clear here, though. I sounded very apprehensive about it. If Cole Perfetti's healthy and cleared for a return, he comes back in. I want him in the lineup.
No, for sure. And I know what you're saying.
I think Cole is one of the best offensive minds on this team. He sees things better than most players do. And I think maybe that's what gets him back into the swing of things a little bit, is the fact that he's just smarter than most players on the ice, it seems. And he can sort of compensate for the fact that maybe he's moving a bit slower because he hasn't been up to game speed in a while. But No, like I just more less so for you and more so for people listening. It sounded very like I know don't introduce Perfetti if you don't need to. I think if Perfetti's healthy, there's no reason in the world you keep him out of the lineup. That's the thing. Like if Cole's getting close, you're gonna see him probably skating harder than everyone else in the practice just to try and get back up to the
Get up.
intensity.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's gonna be a tough one.
Yeah. So we've got a few days until game 1. We've previewed the series quite well here. We're coming to the end of the episode, but I want predictions. I want you to stake your reputation on on a prediction for this series. Again, it's the most even series according to a few models. Some have the Jets, some have Vegas. Brian, we'll start with you. Which way do you see this series playing out, and how many games? We all said it's going late, but how many do you think?
So I think, and as we said, close series all the way through. I think it's going 7. And I think it's going to be one of those 7 games where like the game 7s that's just the entire game you're just absolutely losing your mind because you don't know where it's going. I think it's
Not
going to be
ready
a
for
coin
that.
flip, but I'm going to take Jets in 7.
Wow. Jets in 7. Elliot?
Yeah.
So I know that this is a prediction. It's gonna be weird. I'm gonna throw 2 out and then pick one. It's gonna make sense in a minute here. So
Right.
if the Jets split in Vegas, I take Jets in 7.
Okay.
And that is my prediction. I'm going to predict the Jets take a game in Vegas and come home with the series tied. There is also a possibility where I see that the Jets don't win a game in Vegas, and it could be Vegas in 6. But I'm going to go Jets split in Vegas, and they win in 7. In overtime with 30 seconds
Cole
left.
Perfetti. No.
No.
So are you
I'm not going to
thinking-
pick goal scorer. I'm just going to say with under 3 minutes to go in overtime, in the first overtime in game 7.
Cole Perfetti from the 5th line.
Are you
with David Gustafson and
Yeah.
Axel Janssen-Fjällby?
No, but Elliot, are you thinking though it's kind of going to be like if they don't split, is it going to be like the St. Louis series in 2019 where the Jets don't win a single road game in the entire series or a single home game in the entire series because they won all of their games in that series on the road?
And I think that's the opposite. I don't think they can. I think there's a possibility that they lose 2 in Vegas. They come home. We look great at home and we win 2 games at home, 1 in a blowout. And then we go back to Vegas and lose. And then we come home. And because we're down 3-2, bunch of changes get made. Guys are rattled and we lose in a close one in a game 6. But my hope and my prediction is we split one. We take 1 in Vegas, either game 1 and 2, and we win in 7 in overtime.
Before we move on to Connor, I'm gonna quickly just drop a little something that I saw on Twitter here. So Scott Billick of the Sun saying that Ehlers isn't skating today, but he is talking, which is typically a good sign for someone who's got an injury because they won't put a guy who's out for a long time in front of the camera without saying like he's out for a long time. I think it's a good sign that you see him talking before a playoff series before they leave for Vegas.
Absolutely.
Yeah, true. What time is that press conference go before I make my prediction here?
I don't know. They're just coming
You'll
out
have
onto the
to
ice
tune
now.
Hmm.
Also, while I'm here, just announced that Game 3 is already sold out.
Nice. Well done, Winnipeg.
It
takes all of us.
yesterday.
Takes
all
all
of us and a little threat, but you know.
If
I
you
believe it was
didn't
sold
sell
out
out that
last
game,
night.
that would have been. Yeah. Well,
Okay.
no, the pre-sale went on sale. Anyways, whatever. We don't
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
talk-
One
we don't have to talk
at
about
10
that.
a.m.
Who
and then
cares?
at noon,
Playoff
everyone
hockey's
else got
here.
it. So, but Connor, give me your prediction.
If Nikolai Ehlers is healthy, Jets in 6.
6.
6. They split on the road. That game 6 in Winnipeg when they're up 3-2 is going to be so electric. The city's going to be on fire. I'm pretty sure it's a Saturday.
It won't be like Vancouver on fire though. Don't worry about it.
No, not like that. No, I'm going Jets in 6. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. If Nikolai Ehlers is out, Vegas in 6. Like if Nikolai Ehlers is missing more than 2 games, Vegas in 6. But I think that's what this series comes down to, is the health of Ehlers and Mark Stone. Whichever one returns first, the other team is automatically the better team.
It's a race.
Because it's a coin flip, right? And if you add a bona fide top 6 winger to any of these teams, Ehlers or Stone.
So what you're saying is it's a battle of the medical staffs is more like it.
Who has the better team doctor? That's what this series comes down to. Screw the on ice stuff. Who has the better team doctor? That's
and
what
which player has a better what is it? What system is that? Not immune system, but God, somebody will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Hey,
someone.
your medical degree on the wall back there, Elliot, or
no, I don't. Unfortunately, I don't. Taking one bio course.
It's in storage.
Nothing to do with human. Yeah.
No, I think my prediction is this is how the series goes. Jets split first 2 games. They win both games at home, 3-1. Vegas wins game 5. Jets win game 6, close it out. Again, health permitting, goaltending permitting. That's my prediction. Jets.
You guys both gave like qualifiers to it, so I'm going to add one to mine.
Sure.
I think Jets win the series if they win the first game on the road.
Like game 1.
If they win game 1, I think they win the series. I don't
game
think
one's important.
I don't. They've shown a lot of
Setting the
times
tone.
that if they get down, whether in a game or something, it always just seems like something's a little bit off with them. I think though, if they're up, I think they're just gonna fly.
The thing is, both home buildings are like the 2 toughest places to play in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like Vegas, when they went on that long run, their atmosphere is ridiculous. They do the pregame ceremony. It's Vegas.
Vegas needs to be humbled a little.
Yeah, exactly. The hockey gods need to correct 2018.
They've had it too good for their first few years here.
Yeah. I agree. I think the whiteout game 3 sold out. The street parties are going to be electric.
Which we have I tweeted out a bunch of stuff about the information on this the street parties. So go check that out as well. So that's on the Level Flight account there. So no, it's going to be electric around Canada Life.
Yeah. Last thing for me, I saw a lot of people on Twitter posting that they've secured tickets to whether that be game 3 or game 4. Enjoy the crap out of those games, because I've been lucky enough to experience a Jets playoff game before. I went to a game, the game 5. We don't want to talk about it, against St. Louis. I went to a game in the Nashville series. It wasn't game 3. I'm pretty sure it was game 4. So I might be a bad luck charm going to playoff games, but whatever.
Stay away.
But it is one of the craziest atmospheres you'll ever be a part of. Everyone's going nuts. I just want to say, all those people that are tweeting out that you're going, enjoy it. Whether you're going to a street party or the actual game, it's the most fun time of the year. It's the playoffs.
Also, tag us in the tweets if
yes,
and we'll give you a retweet there, because we want everyone to sort of see where everyone's at, and send us pictures of your seats, where you're at in the street parties, in your Jets gear, do stuff like that. Like we want to make sure that we get the engagement around the playoffs going and everything. And but no, just tag us in the tweets, and we'll give you a retweet there to get the fandom out.
Yeah, just have fun. Like, this is the most electric time of the year. These games mean something. It's the playoffs. I know we rag on the Jets a lot for the on-ice or off-ice product, whatever it may be, but this is the time of the year where you can just kind of shut all that off, and just these games matter. So
yeah,
I just want to say to the people going, have fun, because it is a crazy experience.
We have the environment advantage, so we just bear that in mind.
The environment advantage. Winnipeg's a harder place to play than Vegas.
I have seen from many different players, and
it's nuts. It's nuts.
I know Vegas is a pretty good environment, but when you're talking Winnipeg people just in a regular home game, and especially a playoff game, I don't think there's anything else that rivals. The only thing I will say that rivals it is a fully packed Allen Fieldhouse, which is almost 34 or whatever many games a year. That will be the only thing I will say. But that's where I say that we have the environment advantage, because those two places remind me of each other. It's always bumping at Allen. It's always bumping downtown Winnipeg. So
another thing I'll add to that is, I read on Twitter, I'm not really sure who said it, so I'm sorry if you said this and you're listening and I didn't credit you. That's on me. But someone said that the Jets fans have been kind of skeptical to like get behind this team because of what's happened this year. Like the games earlier in the year were selling out. They were electric. And then down the stretch kind of dipped off. The atmosphere wasn't as insane. Even there was some like nervous energy in that dominant homestand. The playoffs, all that goes out the window. There's no like hesitant, like I'm not saying this is what fans should do. I'm saying this is what's going to happen. Like,
well, it's already
people are going to
happened.
get
They
behind
sold
this.
out game 3 in like an hour and a half.
People are going to get behind this team. And when there's no nervous energy in the building, it's nuts. It's the craziest atmosphere ever. So
the nervous energy shifts from nervous about the state of the team to nervous about the actual game itself, which ratchets up the intensity in the building. So
I can't wait.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that was a long series preview.
Yeah.
I'm just glad we got to do playoff content. Even if it was
in the first year of the pod.
I know, first year playoff appearance. Maybe it was us. Congrats, guys. We did it.
Yeah.
No, but we
are the heartbeat.
Yeah, and we're gonna be doing a ton of content throughout the series. We're planning on doing an episode, whether it be 30 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever's happening, every 2 games. So in between game 2 and 3, in between game 4 and 5. And then maybe if there's game 6, game 7, and all that, we'll just do an episode for each game because those games will be intense. But we're gonna do a ton of content. We might be doing pregame shows. I don't know. Stay tuned on our social media. We're still figuring out what we're gonna do, but we're gonna do a lot. So at Level Flight WPG. As always, thank you for listening from Elliot and Brian, and myself. And enjoy these next 2 weeks because it's the most wonderful time of the year in terms of hockey. But from all 3 of us, thank you for listening, and go Jets.
Go Jets.
Happy whiteout. Go Jets.
You've been listening to the Level Flight Podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network.